All right. Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday to you guys. And thank you so much for joining us for today's coaching call. Today we're going to be doing an in-depth training showing you guys how to use that Clean Life to create meal plans based on specific macronutrient needs. I know this is something that a lot of you guys are working on and have questions about, so hopefully you are going to learn a ton today. And before we jump right in, I would love if you guys would open up the chat box, say hi, let me know where you're tuning in from and how long you've been a member of that Clean Life for Business. I know that we have some of you guys who are here today for your very first coaching call, like Becca. This is her first month, so welcome, Becca. And some of you guys have been in the game for a little while and you've been coming to coaching calls, and we are so happy to have you back. So as you guys are popping in the chat box, welcome to all of you. I'm going to fire up my screen share and we're gonna get this party started because we have a lot to cover today, and it's my hope that you all learn a ton. Okay, so hopefully you guys can all see my screen okay. I see that we have people tuning in from all over the world. We've got some from sunny Arizona, Gail's tuning in from Arizona, Yvonne from London. Amazing. We love seeing you guys across all time zones making time to do this kind of stuff with us. And just as a heads up, guys, this is being recorded, and we are going to be sending you a replay as soon as it's available after this call today. So you'll have it forever, and trust me, you are going to want to save it. So keep an eye out for that. Okay, one final housekeeping note before we jump right in. If you have any questions as I am going along, I'm going to try and stick to the tutorial today while I'm in the platform with my screen share on. And then at the end of that tutorial, I'm going to loop back and I'm going to open up the Q&A box and answer your questions. So as I'm speaking, if you have any questions, put them into the Q&A box and not the chat. But please do use the chat to get to know each other and get to know your colleagues, because that's what this is all about. And we like for this to be super interactive. Okay, so let's dive right in. So creating meal plans based on macros. The very first thing that I'm going to do is head over to my planner. Now, I've already created a blank meal plan called Jessica's 50-20-30 meal prep. The way that I did that is by clicking on the new button, and you can create a blank plan at any time by clicking new, you type your title, and then create plan. So let's talk a little bit about this fake client that I made up and what I'm creating for her. So Jessica is going to be following a meal plan with a 50-20-30 macro split. So that means 50% of calories are coming from carbs, 20% of calories are coming from fat, and 30% of calories are coming from protein. So let's also assign Jessica like an energy amount that she needs per day. Let's say that she needs 2,000 calories per day. So based on that, it would mean that 1,000 calories, 50%, are coming from carbs. At 4 calories per gram, that means she needs 250 grams of carbs per day. At 9 calories per gram, she's going to need about 45 grams of fat per day. And at 4 calories per gram, she's going to need about 150 grams of protein per day. Okay, so you're coming into this meal plan creation with your own targets for your own clients, and it's probably going to be different all the time, but that's what I'm going to be working with today. And also, I'm not a perfectionist, so there's going to be a little bit of variance. It might not be exactly 250 grams of carbs, but it's still going to be pretty close because we're sticking to about 50% of calories coming from carbs, and then 20 from fat, 30 from protein. So I'm going to head over to the recipe database and start looking for recipes that are going to fit into Jessica's meal prep plan that fits this lower fat, higher protein diet that I'm creating for her. So for those of you guys who are brand new and you haven't had much of a chance to filter through our recipe database yet, we have a lot of recipes, and you can find your way through the database by using the filter button. So it's always super easy to find exactly what you are looking for. You can search by how much time you want it to take, how many ingredients you want to use, different tags for diet types, and then ingredients that you want to include or exclude. We're not going to be focusing too much on those ways of filtering today, because today we're going to be getting into the nitty-gritty of filtering recipes based on nutrition information. So next to advanced, you can click on the nutrition tab, and this is where you can look for recipes that fit specific macro targets, specific calorie targets, are high in fiber or low in sodium, or any of the more specific nutrition information that you want to look for. So with a macro split, if we're looking at about 250 grams of carbs per day, that works out to about 65 grams per meal. 45 grams of fat per day is about 12 grams per meal, and 150 grams of protein is about 37 grams per meal. So those are my approximate parameters that I'm going to be sticking to. But I'm going to be showing you how to find recipes and also how to modify recipes to make them fit within the plan that you're trying to create, okay? Because sometimes a recipe almost works but just needs a little bit less fat, and you can definitely modify it to make it work for this specific meal plan that you're building. So to get started, let me just put in some approximate parameters here. So I'm going to look for a recipe that is under 15 grams of fat, but contains at least 20 grams of protein. I'm going to filter the recipes to take out everything that's definitely not going to work for Jessica. Okay, so to start building her plan, let's start with breakfast. I'm seeing these blueberry turkey breakfast sausages, and they're looking awesome to me because I know that that's a really great way to get a lot of protein in at breakfast. So let's have a look at the ingredients. They are super basic and they fit with what kinds of food Jessica needs to be eating. And the nutrition information is about 200 calories, 13 grams of fat, not very many carbs at all in here, and then 20 grams of protein. So I'm thinking that this is looking really good because we can add carbs in as a side dish. So what I'm gonna do is I just wanna bump up the protein on this recipe to make it perfect for her plan. And I'm gonna do that by hitting copy. And then maybe I'll call these high protein blueberry turkey breakfast sausages. I added the high protein so that I'll remember what changes I made to this recipe. And the best way to increase the protein for this recipe is definitely going to be to increase the amount of extra lean ground turkey that's used. So if you click on the little ellipses here and then edit ingredient, you can change the quantity used. So I'm gonna go from 1 pound to 1.5 pounds. And you can see right away that the protein has changed, and we now have 32 grams per serving, which is perfect because Jessica's aiming for around 37 grams per meal. So the fat also shot up quite a bit when I added that extra turkey. So what I'm gonna do is I'm also going to reduce the amount of coconut oil that's used to cook these sausages. I'm gonna lower that from 1 tablespoon to 1 teaspoon, and we are back to 15 grams per serving. So this is looking really great to me. I'm not gonna make any more changes to this. I am just going to save this recipe. And all I changed were the quantity of ingredients used, so I don't need to worry about making changes to the directions or anything like that. I just bumped up the protein and took the fat down a little bit. So now we have these high protein blueberry turkey breakfast sausages. They are ready to go, and I'm gonna add those to her plan. I'm gonna give them to her for breakfast. It makes 4 servings, and this is a meal prep plan, so I'm just going to schedule it for all 4 days. And this is what I'm going to be doing throughout the duration of these examples because I'm creating a meal prep plan, but you guys could definitely create different days, use different recipes if you wanted to. I'm just creating a super simple meal prep plan for Jessica. So I'm gonna head over to the planner. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday as leftovers. So on Monday, Jessica's making 4 servings, and then we are putting 3 in the fridge to save as leftovers so she doesn't need to cook breakfast on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Okay, so we're doing pretty well for protein, we're doing pretty well for fat, but carbs we have almost none of in this meal. So this is where you have to put your nutrition cap on and think like, you know, what makes sense to add in here for carbs. I could go back to the recipe database, but I'm thinking that a bowl of oatmeal would be perfect to round out this meal for Jessica. So she's got her big hefty dose of protein with the sausages, and then a bowl of oatmeal would be the perfect way to get in good quality complex carbohydrates with this meal. So I'm going to head to that recipe by clicking on breakfast, and you can always add a side dish to any meal in your planner. So I'm gonna add a side dish, and I'm gonna add a side dish of just a basic bowl of oatmeal with blueberries. If you are not sure about the nutrition information for this recipe, you can always view the details. So if I want to double check that this works for Jessica, I can take a look. Okay, nutrition looking great. We've got 38 grams of carbs, not a lot in the way of fat or protein, so this is perfect. I'm gonna head back to her planner and I'm going to add that as the side dish. So we've got the oatmeal with blueberries. And I'm gonna do the same thing as the sausages. I'm gonna add it for Monday through Thursday so that she can just cook it once and eat it all week long, and it'll be really easy to stick to her meal plan and to follow her macros, and she won't be able to come back to her next consultation with the excuse that it was too difficult to follow the meal plan. Okay guys, so breakfast is good to go, and we're looking pretty good in terms of the macros so far for the day. So now let's find some lunch recipes. I'm gonna head back to the recipe database. I'm gonna clear my filter. I'm gonna show you guys another way that you could search for recipes based on these macro targets that I've set for this imaginary client. So I'm gonna go back to the nutrition filters, and let's say this time that I wanna make sure that the base of the recipe is something that has a lot of carbs. I'm not gonna add a side dish like I did for breakfast. So I'm gonna search for a recipe that has at least 40 grams of carbs and at least 25 grams of protein. So it's always pretty easy to lower the fat in the recipes because a lot of fat tends to come from cooking oils and stuff like that. So a good trick is to make sure that you're searching for recipes with adequate carbs and protein, and then you can always remove fat as needed by just reducing the amount of cooking oil that's used in the recipe. Okay, so a lot of options have come up, and let's say because of my relationship with Jessica, I know that she doesn't have a great fridge situation at work. Just making up things about her. So she doesn't have a great fridge situation for things at work. So I'm actually gonna look for vegetarian recipes that fit these nutrition parameters, because I want her to be able to leave the meal out for a little bit longer without worrying about, you know, meat sitting out and that not being a good thing. So this tofu, broccoli, and brown rice is looking great to me. It's a great macro meal with a base of carbs, a good quality protein. There's some veggies in there. Everything's looking good. I'm gonna check the nutrition information. And I can see right away that the fat is definitely gonna be a little too high for what Jessica is needing. So we're targeting about 45 grams per day, and this recipe has 27 grams. So that's not gonna give us a lot of room for the rest of the day. What I'm gonna do is similar to the last recipe, I'm just gonna make a few tweaks. So I'm gonna call this tofu, broccoli, and brown rice. Maybe I wanna call it low fat, tofu, broccoli, and brown rice. So a great meal prep recipe. And then to lower the fat, you guys know, because you're all nutrition professionals, that tofu itself is a pretty good source of dietary fat. So she's definitely getting enough fat from the tofu. So I'm going to reduce the amount of olive oil used from 2 tablespoons to 1 teaspoon. And you could always recommend that they use like a spray bottle, or they could measure at 1 teaspoon. I'm also going to reduce the amount of sesame oil used from 1 tablespoon to 1 teaspoon. So we've so far got the fat down from oops, I forgot to change the teaspoon. We've so far got the fat down from 27 grams to 17 grams. And I'm also going to remove the sesame seeds because that's just an optional topping ingredient that she doesn't need because Jessica's got no time and doesn't want to be running around the grocery store looking for sesame seeds. So now we've got the fat down from 27 grams to 12 grams, which is the exact amount per meal that is what's going to work for Jessica based on her macros. So we just perfected this recipe. Now all we need to do is remember to remove the sesame seeds from her directions and we're good. So there's no more reference of sesame seeds. It's like they were never here. And we're going to save the recipe with the new nutrition information. So once the recipe is saved, we're going to add that to her meal plan for lunch. And because this is a meal prep plan, we're going to do the same thing where we're going to schedule it for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, actually. Let me change the number of servings from 3 to 4. Okay, so lunch, Monday through Thursday. We're going to save that, head over to the planner, and mark Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday as leftovers. No, this is the same thing that I just did, so hopefully this is going to be easy for you guys to remember. Okay, so we still have dinner, we still have snacks to deal with for this meal plan. So we'll remove that filter again, and actually I'm going to show you guys. So when I gave you those nutrition parameters per meal, so I said Jessica needs about 65 grams of carbs, about 12 grams of protein, or 12 grams of fat, and about 37 grams of protein per meal. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to filter with those really specific parameters. When you do this, a lot of the time, the number of recipes that show up is going to be pretty limited because you're searching for really specific targets. That's why I like to just plug in 2 out of 3. So we search for the carb range and the protein range, but we leave the fat because we can take that out, or we search for the fat and protein range and we can add carbs as a side dish. The third way is to just get really specific. So I like to give myself about a 10 gram leeway because, you know, doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. So I'm going to give myself between 5 and 15 grams of fat, about 50 to 70 grams of carbohydrates. And then I'm going to give at least 30 grams of protein. She needs 37 grams per meal. So at least 30 grams of protein. And let's see what comes up. Let's see if we have any meal options that are going to fit into her meal plan without needing to be modified. So we've got 3. This meal prep pasta and meat sauce is looking perfect to me. 3 ingredients, really basic, works for a client that has limited time both in the kitchen and the grocery store. So nutrition information is totally perfect. Everything is good to go with this recipe as is. If Jessica needed gluten-free, I could modify the recipe from whole wheat penne to like maybe a chickpea one or a brown rice one. But I'm just going to use this as is, and I'm going to schedule it for her dinner. We've got 4 servings. We're going to schedule it for 4 meals. So again, she's cooking once, and then she is eating all week long and not having to be tied to the kitchen all the time. And I'm going to mark those again as leftovers. So we're doing pretty good. We're almost all the way there. She's at about 1,400 calories. We just need to add some snacks for Jessica now to fill in the gaps and give her something to eat in between meals if she needs that. So let's head back to the recipe database, and I'm going to think creatively, like for Jessica, what would be a good recipe or a snack idea for her. Pop into the chat box maybe, guys, if you are fans of shakes. I love recommending shakes for my clients because it's easy. They can usually drink them at their desk if they're working. It's a great way to work in a good dose of protein from protein powder, as well as some good quality like micronutrients from fruits and vegetables. So I am going to look for a shake that would work really well for Jessica. So I'm going to apply the smoothie filter. and I'm going to look only at the smoothie recipes available in that Clean Life and see if we can find something that would work really well for her. So I'm seeing a lot of green smoothies, which is awesome. And this blueberry protein smoothie. So I have blueberries in her breakfast sausages and with her oatmeal. So I think that if we can give her a blueberry smoothie, that's one less ingredient she has to buy. She can just get extra blueberries. So it'll help with her compliance. So I'm going to use this blueberry protein smoothie for sure. And looking at the nutrition information, I'm going to tweak it just a tiny bit because I want to increase the amount of protein powder used. That could be maybe because I know that the brand that I recommend is a third of a cup scoop versus a quarter cup scoop. And I also want to boost the carbs in this recipe. I'm going to do that by adding a banana. So blueberry banana protein smoothie. And like I said, I'm just going to increase the amount of protein a tiny bit because I know that the brand of protein powder that I recommended to Jessica uses a 1/3 cup scoop. I'm going to remove the flax because she's already got lots of fiber in this meal plan, and I'm trying to minimize the ingredients she has to buy. And I'm going to add a banana. 1 banana to get the carbs up. So now we are at 49 grams. And the directions are super simple. Put all the ingredients in the blender and blend. So I'm just going to save the recipe as that is. The nutrition information has been updated, and I'm going to add that as a snack for Jessica. So her morning snack all week long is going to be a smoothie. And since it would be kind of gross to make 4 servings of a smoothie and eat them as leftovers all week, I'm just going to have her blend that fresh every morning. So each day is marked as 1 serving, and I'm not going to mark them as leftovers. So last one to finish up this meal plan, an afternoon snack. So I'm going to head back to the recipe database one last time. I'm going to remove the filter for smoothie, and I'm going to search for something that's really low in fat. So I'm going to say maybe under 8 grams of fat and really high in protein. So at least 20 grams of protein. And I'm going to filter and see what comes up. That looks like it would be a good snack. Right at the top, we have these creamy tuna on oat crackers. I think that would be perfect. Looking at the nutrition information, everything looks good based on this plan for her. So I'm going to add that to her afternoon snack for Monday through Thursday for this meal prep plan. And then I am going to head back to the planner and see where we're at for nutrition information so far. So 2 servings. Maybe we'll have her make that every other day. So we'll toggle as leftovers and toggle as leftover the second time. You could probably set it to 4 servings and have her make it once and eat it all week. I don't really know how well tuna salad would last. So that's up to you. That's your call. Okay, so we are sitting at 1,900 calories, about 50 grams of fat, about 238 grams of carbs, and 145 grams of protein per day. So our target was 50% carbs, 20% protein, 30% or 20% fat, 30% protein, and we're pretty much there. One thing I might want to do is add a side of a banana to her afternoon snack, just to get the calories exactly where I want them to be. I don't want Jessica under eating, so I could add that as a side dish. Like I said, you can add a side dish to any meal, any snack, anything. And oh, look, that really made it perfect. So we're exactly 50% carbs, 22% fat, and 28% protein. I would call that square. I would say that that is working for Jessica. So that's pretty much it in terms of how you can create meal plans based around macros. We covered how to search for recipes really specifically to find recipes that fit the macros, how to modify recipes in a couple different ways to either decrease the fat, increase the protein, how to add side dishes to round out the meals. If you're using a recipe that's more protein heavy but low in carbs, you can add carbs as a side dish. And same thing basically across the board for any type of diet that you're working with. You can use the same principles to create a meal plan. Maybe you are seeing a recipe that's too high in carbs, but you want to use it for a keto meal plan. You can reduce the carbs in it. And same thing if you're looking for, you know, super low fat recipes, really high protein recipes, low protein recipes, whatever it is that you are working on. Okay, guys, so we're coming up on time here. I'm going to open up the Q&A box, and if you guys have any questions, make sure you pop those in now so I can take a look at those. And let's get to your questions before we wrap up. Okay, so Catherine's saying, since variety is so important, why would you have the same breakfast 4 days in a row? You definitely don't have to do what I'm doing. As nutritionists, we know that variety is important, but it doesn't necessarily need to be day-to-day variety. It's more your diet as a whole. So maybe I'm giving Jessica one meal prep plan for 1 week to make it easy for her to follow. But next week, we're going to create a new plan with new recipes. So she's not eating the same thing every day for like months at a time. She's just eating the same thing every day for 1 week to increase her compliance and make it easy for her to follow this plan. Again, I made up this client profile for Jessica, so I know that my imaginary client has limited time to shop, limited time to cook, doesn't want to mess around, isn't a fan of getting creative in the kitchen. She just wants to eat and get results, and this plan is based on helping her with those goals. Becca's asking us, oh, it's a similar question. Do clients seem annoyed or more thankful for leftovers? Like, do they feel like they're not getting what they pay for? I really don't think so. I actually think this is a good question because I think a lot of nutritionists think that they have to put together meal plans where they are giving a different meal option for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like a 7-day meal plan should contain at least 21 recipes. But I have found as a practitioner myself that clients really tend to not like that. It's very rare that your clients are going to want that. And I've actually had clients come to me from other nutrition professionals and say, the meal plan I got was just too complicated. They wanted me cooking something different for every breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So you might think that you're adding value by giving all these different recipes, but your client might think that your plan is so hard to follow that they're not getting what they paid for. So obviously, it's really important to have those conversations with your client and really good communication. We have a meal planning assessment tool that you can access at thatcleanlife.com/books. You guys can find all of our books, all of our resources. They're all free for you. So we have a marketing guide for group nutrition programs. We have a lead magnet creation guide. We have a meal planning assessment. So I'll include the link in the replay email that I send out today, but the meal planning assessment will help you determine whether your client wants leftovers or whether they want something new for every meal, because that's one of the questions that's in the assessment. I definitely urge you to always assume that they want a more simple meal plan. Never assume that they want complex. Wait for them to ask for it. Hopefully that helps you guys. I see that a lot of you are agreeing. Clients always want leftovers. Clients want simplicity. Absolutely. Okay, Vanessa says, thanks, Ashley. You make everything look easy. Amazing. Thank you for coming, Vanessa. Heidi's asking, can you add your own brands to the list of ingredients like a certain type of protein? You absolutely can. I'm not going to cover how to do that today, but I'm going to show you guys. If you use this little help beacon at the bottom right corner from within the platform, you can always search for this type of information. So if you have a question like that, so if you search like pre-made ingredients, we have a whole article on how to edit recipes to include pre-made foods. So one of the examples is that you might want your client to use a brand name protein powder. And then we have a step-by-step help article showing you exactly how to modify recipes to include custom branded ingredients. So hopefully that helps, because there are absolutely going to be times when you want to do that, and you definitely can. Zaria is saying, Maybe I missed how to add something as a side dish rather than a snack. Yep, let me show you how to do that one more time, guys. So from the planner, if you click into any meal slot, whether it's breakfast, lunch, dinner, or snacks, anything, you will see that you can add a main and you can add a side. So you can add a side dish to anything. Hopefully that clarifies for you. All right, Sue's asking, can we modify our own recipes that we have imported in the same way? You absolutely can. So if you head over to your recipe box, everything you have ever modified or imported or added lives here. And you can do the same thing. You can open a recipe and you can copy it. You can also edit it if you want to change it forever. So whether you want to make a copy and create a new version, or you just want to make some tweaks to the version that you imported, you can absolutely do that. Okay, Carol has a question about leftovers. I want to make sure that I'm understanding them correctly. For the breakfast burgers, you have 4 servings and 4 days. But for the oatmeal, it was 1 serving, but 4 days. Oh, is that just an oversight, or am I missing something? That may have just been an oversight. Let me double check this. Yeah, you're totally right. So I had that scheduled mistakenly for 1 serving, but I would definitely want to schedule that for 4 servings. That's an awesome catch, Carol. Thank you for catching that. You always want to make sure that the first time a recipe is cooked, you're making enough to cover that meal plus all of the leftovers. Okay, Becky, do you suggest giving this tool before creating a group program? I think you're asking about the meal planning assessment tool, and I would not recommend using that for a group program because everyone's gonna have different answers, but in a group program, everyone gets the same plan. So if somebody needs a customized approach, a group program is not for them. Just a tip for you guys in terms of practice management, only run group programs where the people signing up are all going to have the same needs, right? So run a group program for people who are recently diagnosed as celiac because they're all going to need the same information. Run a group program for women who have PCOS, specifically the type where their symptoms are elevated androgens, because all of them are going to have pretty much the same needs. Do not run a group program called like clean eating for anyone, because everyone who signs up is going to have different needs and you're going to be causing yourself a big headache. Okay, so I think that there are also some questions in the chat box. Guys, remember that I'm looking in the Q&A box for questions, but I'll pop over there quickly to see if there's anything that's jumping out to me. Rachel's asking, is the meat protein calculated as raw or cooked? I believe that it's linked to the raw version in the database because that's what is going on the shopping list. So people are buying whatever 16 ounces of chicken breast raw at the grocery store, and then they're cooking it. So that's how our nutrition information is calculated as well. Renee's saying, thinking that the amounts of fat listed in a recipe are what makes the recipe work. A bit worried that the recipes won't work with the appropriate amounts. So that's, again, up to you. You have to use your culinary knowledge when you're modifying a recipe. If it's something like the amount of cooking oil that's used, usually what I do is reduce it to a teaspoon and then advise the client to get a spray, or you could completely change the nutrition, the ingredients list to be like a coconut oil spray or something like that. But most of the recipes, especially when you're just adding oil to roast vegetables or cook on the pan, you can use a teaspoon instead of a tablespoon and it'll still work well. Where I wouldn't just cut it would be in like a salad dressing or something. I would reduce the oil, but then I would add other ingredients to make sure that the salad dressing is still good. And that's just based on what I know about salad. There's no specific formula for that. Jennifer's asking, I want to be able to plug in, for example, 4 ounces of baked salmon, 1 cup of steamed broccoli, 1/3 of a cup of quinoa. Yep, you can absolutely do that. You could create a recipe in your recipe box where you just add the ingredients super simply. You can also, we actually have a recipe like that, salmon, broccoli, I don't know what it's called right now. baked salmon with broccoli and quinoa. So you might want to edit the amounts that are used to make it fit for your client, but we do have a recipe like that. And you can always add your own basic recipes. We also have a lot of simple recipes like this one, or like just chicken breast, just roasted chicken breast, or just roasted broccoli, so that you could create a meal plan based on like a protein and a starch as a side dish. Last week's coach, or 2 weeks ago, I did a coaching call about how to combine side dishes. So I'm not going to cover that now, but if you head to your dashboard, you can see the replay from that coaching call, May 6th. And in there, I show you how to combine multiple side dishes if you want to make super simple meals like that. And then, of course, like I said, you can always add your own recipes to just cut down on time and get exactly what you're looking for. Okay, guys, I think that is everything for questions. Oh, one more just popped in. Megan saying, if you wanted to bring this plan down to 1,500 calories, what would be the most efficient way to adjust each recipe so the macros don't get messed up? Okay, so I wouldn't take a plan that I created based on these macros and then just try to reduce the calories, because this was all of the parameters that I set per meal was based on 2,000 calories per day. So if you wanted to bring it down to 1,500 calories, you could just eliminate one of the snacks and maybe have them just do like an afternoon snack instead of a morning and an afternoon snack. But you can also just create the plan with those parameters. So if you are creating multiple plans, like a 2,000 calorie version, and then a 1,500 calorie version, and then a 1,400 calorie version, or something like that. You could create them all separately and then have them for use over and over again. But I wouldn't necessarily think that the best way to do that is to modify every single recipe and just change the ingredients. Although you absolutely could do that if you wanted to, it just wouldn't necessarily be the most efficient way versus finding recipes that work better for the new macro requirements that you have for this new client with different energy needs. Okay, guys, I think that covers everything. So like I said, I'm going to be sending you an email with the replay so you can catch that. And I'll also include the link to the meal planning assessment tool for anyone who wanted to start using that to figure out if their clients want leftovers or not. If you have any questions, you can respond to the replay email or email us at support@thatcleanlife.com, whether it was a question that we couldn't get to today because it wasn't related to the topic of this call, or something that came up after you got off the call that you wished you had asked. And also, please feel free to reach out if you have any suggestions for future coaching call topics. If there's something you want to see an in-depth training on, just like how we did meal planning for macros, if there's something else you want to see us talk about, let us know, because everything is created based on you guys and what you want and how we can make your experience as That Clean Life for Business members as good as it can be. All right, so thank you guys so much. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will talk to all of you very, very soon. Bye, guys.